Hello and welcome to Let's Talk SEO. You probably already know Google is rolling out the August core algorithm update. This is something we were expecting. If you watch my channel regularly, you know I predicted this a few days back in one of my videos, and I said an update is due anytime now in August. And lo and behold, a few days later, Google announces their core algorithm update for August, and the core algorithm update started rolling out on August the 15th. So it's been 24 hours, and I have some interesting observations. The first thing Google has done is update its Google searches core updates and your website documentation. So they've gone from the bare bones to adding a little more to it, which I will go into in this video. But what am I seeing? The types of websites that are being hit right now real hard are mainly e-commerce stores. Now, this was also the focus of their previous core update. But with the previous core update, they were hitting a whole different set of other stuff, which you can watch in the video that I made about that core update. This update builds on that previous update. So in the past, they were targeting content-heavy websites. They were targeting websites that were doing lots of AI content, lots of AI-generated, regurgitated content, and with low quality links and low quality, overall low quality content, which was very easy to pick out. Now Google knows that people have scaled their operations, and it's not just content-heavy websites that are engaging in tons and tons of AI content, but low quality AI content. Let's just call it that. But there's now also e-commerce stores. And also there are the types of websites like service-based websites that are engaging in this type of activity. So the key operating term here is low quality. So AI doesn't really matter as much as the quality of the content. And I think this has to be drilled as much as possible, because you can use AI to write your content, but that does not mean that your content is going to be original. Now, you can use AI to write content which is 100% original, because you've done the research, you've pieced together the pieces, and all AI is doing is working as a second pair of hands to type out the article. Now, and then with some editing, you can make the article even better, improve upon it, but it shortens the time it takes to go from having an idea to having a completed article. If that's the only thing you're using AI for, then that is a quality product. But the problem with Google is a machine, and a machine does not have emotions. A machine does not have the ability to think. It does not have the ability to objectively look at something. So when Google is looking at your piece of content, it's looking at it in the context of the industry in which it's ranking, and in context with other pieces of content that is just like yours. So how do you rank with something like that? And how do you figure out, if you've been hit by an algorithm update, or how do you even avoid a core algorithm update like that from hitting your websites? Well, ask any one of my clients, and 99% of them will tell you they've not been hit for a while. And that's because the practices that I use are one step ahead of what Google is going to go after next. So I already have a checklist of what Google is going to go after. And it's not something I got from Google. It's just common sense. I know this is what Google is going to do based on historically what they've done. E-commerce stores that actively engage in low quality product descriptions, low quality internal linking, low quality backlinks are being hit, and those are going to be the target. The same goes for service-based websites that just have regurgitated, rewritten content on their sites. Google is going to go after them. The other thing that this core algorithm update is looking at very strongly is intent. So if someone lands on your page and the intent is not instantly clear, you're going to have ranking problems. So if someone goes onto an e-commerce store and they see an opt-in box, that's the first thing that they see. When Google sees that, and Google knows that this is not an e-commerce store, Google will then say this is something else, but it's not an e-commerce store. So make sure that you're testing your website to make sure Google is seeing exactly what you want Google and your people to see. So if the people are seeing that it's an e-commerce store, Google should also see that it's an e-commerce store. Make the intent of your e-commerce store absolutely clear. Then make it absolutely clear what you're selling on that store, and that is exactly what you should be ranking for. Now, content is secondary on an e-commerce store, and anyone who does SEO will tell you that, because the first most important thing is intent and how closely related it is to the search term that you're targeting. So the more focused you are, the higher you will rank, and content is just that a little bit on top. It helps you get from number 3 to number 1. But all things considered, make sure that the intent is clear. Now, to Google's updated documentation. So I'll go right over here. It says how core updates work. So it goes into how core updates work. Obviously, it doesn't tell you anything. It just says that one way to think about a core update is to imagine that a friend asks for your top food recommendations. While you do have a list of your 20 favorite restaurants, things have changed since you have initially wrote it in 2019. Some new restaurants that didn't exist before, some new restaurants that didn't exist before are now candidates for your list. You might reassess some restaurants and realize that they move to a higher spot or list given how many consistently positive experiences you have had, or to the account your friends' preferences for dog-friendly restaurants. So what they're saying here, the core update mainly reevaluates websites. So there are new websites coming out each year, so it's more of a reevaluation. But the problem with this statement is it's not just a reevaluation, it's a reevaluation of everything on your site. And it's looking at the context in terms of quality of your site compared to all of the newcomers. So you will have a site that jumps from page 2 to page 1 just because they've been focusing so well on good content and SEO. And it's happened to me. I've ranked so many websites that were not doing so well, but I kept hanging on to the client, telling them, you know what we're doing? This is the best we're doing, and we're just an update away from landing on page 1. And lo and behold, there would be an update and we would land on page 1, because you tick all the right boxes, you will get on page 1. It's just that most people want to take shortcuts, and many SEOs, especially on YouTube, and honestly, they're not even done SEO. Nobody in the SEO industry even knows them. So if that is your approach to doing SEO, you are going to have a problem. Do not take that approach. Take the long-term approach, and that will help you in the long run and also in the short term. The next, they have to check if there is a traffic drop in Search Console. Now, this is very self-explanatory. You should read this. There's a link in the description to this documentation. Read this. You'll find it helpful if you're someone new to SEO. But apparently, they're saying if there's a small drop in traffic, like a small drop in position, if you're number 2 and you drop to number 4, then that's not a big deal, because then Google might reevaluate and you might get back to number 2. The problem with that is it does not happen. It does not happen like that. When you drop to number 4, and you're going to stick on number 4 if you don't do something to get to number 1. So what I've found is that you have to be actively engaged. So the higher you go up in terms of rankings, the more actively engaged you have to be to hold those rankings. And so it becomes like, for some websites, I have to work on them like every day just to keep those websites ranking, because if I don't even work on the sites 2 or 3 days, they lose ranking. That's how volatile and that's how competitive those industries are. So this is something that needs to be done every day. It's not something that just you sit back and relax. The next thing they say is that if you lost a great deal of rankings, then you need to look at pages that have lost rankings and why they have lost rankings. Again, this is not as simple as they made it out to be, because the Google Search Console doesn't give you all the data you need to figure these things out. They just give you very little data honestly, there's very little data to figure it out. And if you're new to SEO, it's very hard to piece the pieces together. So you need someone like me to go in and do an audit of your site to figure out exactly what's going on, and whether or not you've even been hit by the update, because many times a website will not even be hit by the core update, but the assumption would be that because their traffic went down around the time of the update, that is what has affected them, but that's not always the case. Things to keep in mind when making changes. So they're saying, avoid doing any quick fix changes. This is something I've always said, do not do any quick fixes. Don't just change the title around or some images around. That does not really work. Look at your content in the grand scheme of things, and the grand scheme of your website is what they're recommending. I would recommend doing the same thing. I'll also look at seeing if you're, let's say, a service-based site, if you're really addressing that service industry correctly. And oftentimes I see when a service-based site is not ranking, is they're not addressing that service industry correctly. So that needs to be fixed. Again, if you don't fix it, you're going to lose rankings. But again, with the August core update, there is going to be volatility. There is volatility. Wait for until the update is over to decide whether you're going to hire someone like me to get in and fix your site, whether you're going to hire someone like me to do an audit of your site, whether you're going to hire someone like me to do SEO for your site. Wait for until this finishes rolling out to then make the decision, because if you don't recover until after this finishes rolling out, you can then make the decision of what you want to do with your site. Just don't go in and start making changes right away because you've lost rankings. That's not the right approach. Hope you guys found the video useful. Like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.